We got Baker Mayfield versus Josh Allen. This is an epic Week 11 matchup in store here. I'm going to give you a full game preview, everything you need to know about the Buccaneers versus the Buffalo Bills in Week 11. Also, injury news. Who's in, who's out. There's some really key injury news for both teams. We'll get to that, as well as my keys to the game. This is going to be a very tough matchup for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and for the Buffalo Bills. But if the Buccaneers do these three things, they might come out of Buffalo with a victory. And lastly, all the Week 11 picks, all the games around the league, I'm going to give you my picks, Adam Slivon's picks, all that and more on this episode of Fear the Bay. Bucs fans, my Fear the Bay Gunners, welcome back to another episode of Fear the Bay. I'm your host, Daniel Morales. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Buffalo Bills are both coming off of losses in week number 10. The Buffalo Bills coming off of a loss against the 2-win, now 3-win Miami Dolphins team. Anytime you face a divisional opponent, those games are always hard. They know you and you know them. So it doesn't matter the record in those games. And they figured it out the hard way last week. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they had a bye week in week number 9. They had 2 weeks to prepare for one of the hottest teams in the entire league, the New England Patriots, and they still couldn't get the victory in Raymond James Stadium at home in Tampa. Now, the offense needs to turn things around. The offense needs to, I know they're banged up, and I know they're missing Mike Evans, and they're missing Chris Godwin Jr., and they're missing Bucky Irving. But it doesn't matter who you have out there. We always hear the slogan, next man up. And you got to execute, no matter who's out there. And there's much blame to go around. You can't just pin this on Baker Mayfield, who has been off, I would say, since the San Francisco 49ers game where he missed a wide open Emeka Buka across the middle of the field twice. You can't blame this on Josh Grizzard, who's had his stumbles, for example, against the New Orleans Saints before the bye week where he ran the ball 5 times right up the middle, the same exact play, and none of them worked, and there was a turnover on downs for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You could blame Dan Feeney, who struggled. You can even blame Tristan Wirfs in last game, who had a few issues as well. There's much more blame to go around. There's not a single person, no matter coach or player, that can pin this loss on. When the defense, for the most part, it looked ugly at times. Of course, Travion Henderson had 2 gushes, two phenomenal explosive runs that led to touchdowns. But outside of those 2 phenomenal plays and the crossing route, of course, that led to a touchdown by their wide receiver Williams, working against the rookie Benjamin Morrison. Outside really 3 plays, and those are 3 huge plays, if I may say, of course, the defense kept this team in the game. It wasn't the offense. That's how it's been throughout the last few weeks since the Buccaneers suffered their injuries and they've been a bit sluggish on offense. They need to turn things around on offense. And it doesn't really matter who you have out there. Nobody cares who you have out there. You still have to keep the ball moving down the field. And when you get into the red zone, you got to score touchdowns. So there's some stats I want to go over from last year's 2024 offense, of course, led by Liam Cohen. But Josh Grizzard was a part of this. He was in charge of third downs. He was, of course, the pass game specialist. Some stats from last year's offense to this year's 2025 Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. And there's a bunch of stats I can go over, but there's 3 I want to highlight. The only positive major metric that the Buccaneers have improved on offense are turnovers. The Buccaneers have had 5 turnovers so far on offense throughout the first 9 games of the season. Last year, they had a total of 12 turnovers throughout the first 9 games. So that is a decrease there of 7 turnovers, which is a plus. That is a very good thing. You don't want to turn the ball over to the defense, to the opposing team. So third down conversion rate. Last year, and Josh Grizzard was scheming up these third down play calls. He was a mastermind behind these third downs. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers had a 51.11 third down conversion rate. That means when they get into the money down third downs, they were converting. They were getting those first downs at 51%. That doesn't seem like a lot. That's pretty much a coin toss, but that ranked them first in the entire league last year. Now this year, they're converting third downs at a 36.52%. So they dropped from first in the league last year all the way down to 24th in the league this year when they get into third down situations. The offense isn't staying alive. They're not converting these third downs, converting the money down, keeping the drives alive, keeping the offense on the field, and keeping your chances of scoring and winning these games alive. Red zone scoring percentage, another key metric that I want to go over here. So red zone scoring percentage, when they get into the red zone inside the 20, how often are they scoring touchdowns? So last year, they scored, when they got into the red zone, 66.67% of the time. So essentially 2/3 of the time that they got into the red zone, they turned that opportunity into a touchdown. And that ranked them 4th in the entire league. Top 5 offense was what they had last year. Now this year, when they get into the red zone, they're turning those opportunities only 52% of the time into touchdowns, which ranks them 24th in the entire league. So again, in terms of third downs, they went from 1st in the league last year to 24th in the league this year. And in terms of red zone scoring percentage, they were the 4th best team in the league when they got into the red zone. This year, they're the 24th best team, which is, of course, in the bottom third of the entire NFL. So this offense needs to turn things around. And, you can blame the injuries. The injuries are a big part of this, of course. But we've seen this offense go down the field and score points, 38 points against the Seattle Seahawks. And Emeka Egbuka was their top wide receiver. Chris Godwin Jr. had, I believe, 3 receptions in that game. But, of course, he wasn't 100% also. Chris Godwin, there was no Bucky Irving. There was no Mike Evans, who was dealing with a hamstring injury at that time. This offense was able to go down the field and score points. We saw at the end of the San Francisco 49ers game when Emeka Egbuka went down with his hamstring injury, and it was Cam Johnson and Tez Johnson and no Bucky Irving. It was just Rachaad White and Sean Tucker. It doesn't really matter who you have on offense out there right now, because these teams, for example, the Buffalo Bills, who the Buccaneers will be seeing this week, I would not say that they have a true wide receiver 1. I would be uncomfortable if I was a GM with any of those guys being my wide receiver 2. They're not going to be without their tight end 1, and we'll talk about injuries later on. But offenses around the league, they're injured as well, or they don't have the same talent that you're used to with the Mike Evans. We've been a bit spoiled with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan and Bucky Irving, all these offensive players. And maybe those players have made Dave Canales or Liam Cohen or Josh Grisard look a bit better, but they're having success in other places as well. Relative success, but they're still having success. This offense needs to turn things around if they want to be considered a true Super Bowl contender. And I think they could do it. They have the potential to do it. They're going to get players back soon. But they have to turn things around with the guys they have out there. Let's get now into the game preview for week. All right, let's get now into this game preview for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And who is the enemy of the Bay this week? It is the Buffalo Bills. The Buccaneers are going to have to go on the road into a harsh, loud, cold environment and hope to improve to 7-3 on the season. Let's break down this Buffalo Bills offense first, who the Buccaneers will be seeing this week. Josh Allen is the quarterback. He's the 2024 NFL MVP. He is a draft classmate of Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield in 2018 went first overall in the draft to Cleveland, and of course, the Buffalo Bills drafted Josh Allen. That was part of the trade, I believe, with Vita Vea that year. That 2018 draft class, phenomenal. You have Sam Darnold, who is playing phenomenally with the Seattle Seahawks. He had a great year last year with the Minnesota Vikings as well, solidifying the fact that he can be a true quarterback 1 in this league. We know Lamar Jackson, who went last. He was the last quarterback in the first round, who is MVP himself as well. Josh Allen this year in the air. So he could do it in the air, he could do it with his arm, he could do it on the ground. If I was a GM, I know a lot of Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans might not want to hear this, but if I was a general manager, and this is just me being objective, if I was a general manager in the league and I was able to pick any quarterback to be my quarterback for the next decade plus, if I could select any quarterback in the league, it would be Josh Allen. He has the size, he has the arm strength, he has the speed, the legs, he has the toughness, and he's cut down on his interceptions, which were an issue in the past. In the air, he has 2,199 yards, passing yards this season. That ranks 12th highest in the entire league. But in terms of completion percentage, he has a 70.3 completion percentage, which is 4th highest among all eligible quarterbacks. He has 15 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. On the ground, he has 311 yards, which is 4th highest for all quarterbacks so far this season. 7 touchdowns on the ground as well. So in total, he has 22 touchdowns this season. And his 7 touchdowns are tied for first for all quarterbacks in the entire league. So throughout the last 2 games of the season, against the Miami Dolphins in the game they had in week number 9, Josh Allen has been sacked 3 times in each of those games. So there's going to be opportunities. I believe there's been no game this season where Josh Allen has came out of that game without being sacked. So there's going to be opportunities if the Buccaneers edge rushers and Buccaneers defensive line are able, or even a blitzing Antoine Winfield Jr., or blitzing Jamel Dean, or blitzing Jacob Parrish. If they're able to generate pressure and get to the quarterback, there's going to be opportunities for them to get sacks. Again, the last 2 games for the Miami Dolphins, Josh Allen has been sacked 3 times in each of those games. All right, their star on offense is none other than James Cook III, their running back. So in 2023 and 2024, throughout the last 2 seasons, he's had a total of 2,834 yards. But what was even more astounding to me is that in those 2 years combined, he had 24 total touchdowns, which is insane. He is a weapon. He is their top weapon on offense. He received a contract extension this offseason. I know he was hoping to get more, but you're playing a football game. They're paying you pretty well, I would say. He got a 4-year, $48 million contract extension. $30 million of that is guaranteed. So essentially the first 3 years are guaranteed there, just about. So on the ground, how is he doing? This year, he has 920 rushing yards, which ranks second only behind a guy who should be, if the MVP wasn't has become a quarterback award, the MVP award. Jonathan Taylor, who is first in the league right now in terms of rushing yards. He should be the MVP of the league once it's all said and done. But we saw Saquon Barkley not win the MVP last year because, again, it has become a quarterback award. All right, so James Cook, again, 920 rushing yards, second most in the entire league right now. He's averaging 6.9 yards per carry, which is really good for a running back, and for him, it's actually the lowest in his entire career. He at times he's had, I believe, an 8.1 and an 8.7 or 8.9 yard per carry average. I mean, he's a good running back, a really good running back, and he's their star on that offense. In terms of wide receiver, they don't have a wide receiver one, which is really good for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They have Keon Coleman, they have Khalil Shakir, and they have Joshua Palmer, who they signed in free agency from the LA Chargers. They don't have a wide receiver one. As I stated before, I would be uncomfortable with any of these guys being my wide receiver two. They have, again, wide receiver 3s, wide receiver 4s, wide receiver 5s, and that might be me being a bit too harsh. But I wouldn't feel comfortable if I was a GM having these guys as my top receiving threats. But we just focus on Keon Coleman, who the Buffalo Bills drafted last year in the second round. He was the 33rd overall selection. Last year, he played in 13 games. He had 57 targets, a total of 29 receptions, 556 yards, and 19.2 yards average yard per reception average, and 4 touchdowns. This year, he has 330 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, the Buffalo Bills, what I'll focus when it comes to wide receivers is, the reports were that the Buffalo Bills, before the trade deadline, they attempted to acquire a wide receiver, and they were even looking with inside their division at the Miami Dolphins roster. And they were trying to acquire, from what the reports were, what was being reported, Jalen Waddle, who is now the wide receiver one with Tyreek Hill injured in Miami. He's their wide receiver one now. So they were trying to trade, it appears, for Jalen Waddle, who he would be their wide receiver one, their top receiving threat. They also try to make a trade from some reports we're stating for Rashid Shaheed, who got traded. He's the speedy return specialist for and wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints, who got traded to the Seattle Seahawks. They try to make a trade for him as well. So they try to acquire, they know a wide receiver, the wide receiver room is pretty bad, and they try to acquire some more talent for Josh Allen. They just couldn't get those trades accomplished. All right. Dalton Kincaid, he is their tight end one. He is their top receiving threat. And he's going to be out this game with a hamstring injury. So really, outside of James Cook, there's not many weapons that the Buccaneers should be scared of. And of course, any of these guys, a Keon Coleman, for example, a Joshua Palmer, they can explode. A Dawson, a Knox at the tight end 2, who's going to be at the tight end 1 this week. Any of these guys can explode any given week. But in terms of overall talent on offense, if you can pretty much eliminate James Cook, you're going to have a pretty good opportunity to capitalize on defense and really limit Josh Allen and this offense led by Joe Brady. All right, on the offensive line, you got Dion Dawkins at left tackle. This year, he has a 71.5 overall PFF grade. He has a 82.2 pass blocking grade, which is the 8th best for all offensive tackles in the entire league. And he's not doing so well at the run blocking aspect of his game. He has a 62.8 run blocking grade, which is 42nd for best in the league for all offensive tackles. I want to get to 2 guys real quick. The center, Connor McGovern. He's been really, really good for them. He's allowed 0 sacks this season. He's ranked as PFF's 9th best center in the entire league. He's allowed only 1 QB hit and 7 total pressures, so he's doing pretty well. The weakness, I would say, and they have a pretty good, I would say, offensive line overall, but their weakness on offensive line comes at right guard with Osiris Torrance. He was a second-round pick in 2023 out of Florida. He's been a day 1 starter ever since they drafted him. PFF gives him a 56.8 overall PFF grade, which is 48th overall for guards in the entire league. So he's not doing so well overall in the eyes of PFF. He has a 62.2 pass blocking grade, which ranks him as the 38th guard in the league. And then he has a 51.8 run blocking grade, which ranks him at 50th out of 80 eligible offensive guards. So the one weakness on that offensive line is at right guard with Torrance. And again, they're missing their tight end 1. They don't have a true wide receiver 1. And if you ask me, they don't have a true wide receiver 2 also. If you can stop James Cook III on offense, you might find a path to victory. This defense can keep this game. If the offense can't get things going, if they can stop the run, they have a good chance of keeping this game close. So the Buccaneers offense could get points late in the 4th quarter if it comes to that kind of situation. Let's get now to the defense and special teams unit for the Buffalo Bills. Bucs fans, want to know how you can help this channel, Fear the Bay, continue to grow and expand? Well, all you have to do are 3 simple things, and they're absolutely free. And what are those things, you might be asking? Well, like, subscribe, and comment. Like, subscribe, and comment. When you do that, when you engage with the content, what happens is YouTube's algorithm continues to push this content out to more phenomenal Bucs fans like yourself. So please, if you have not done so already, like, subscribe, and comment. Those things help me out tremendously, and they help our channel, they help our community continue to grow and grow and grow and expand to brand new heights. Let's get back to the video. We definitely do not want to miss that. All right, let's get into this defense and special teams now for the Buffalo Bills, the enemy of the Bay, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, week number 11. Their defensive line is pretty good. I would say it's pretty solid. At defensive end, they have Greg Rousseau, and they also have Joey Bosa, who came over from the LA Chargers. So Rousseau, this season, he has 3 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 2 PBUs, 2 pass breakups, 3 tackle for losses, and 10 QB hits. PFF has him ranked at the 9th best edge rusher in the entire league. He has an 85 overall grade, and he has generated 27 pressures this year. So he's going to be a problem for the Buccaneers tackles. But I feel confident with Luke Gedeke back. I feel confident that they can stop Joey Bosa and they can stop Gregory Rousseau. I would take Worse and Gedeke over any edge rushers in the entire league. Now, it gets difficult when you get guys like Myles Garrett and, of course, Aiden Hutchinson, guys like that. But they're not seeing those guys this week. But I like the bookend tackles that the Buccaneers have almost any matchup. Joey Bosa, the other defensive end, this season he has 4 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, which ranks tied for first there with among all edge rushers. 4 forced fumbles. He's got the ball out of receivers or running backs' hands or quarterbacks' hands 4 times this season. Rousseau generated 27 pressures so far this season. Bosa has generated 35 pressures so far this season and 9 total QB hits. He's playing really, really, really well. He had an injury plague season last year with a few injuries going on there, but seems like he's healthy and he's getting things going. He's generating a lot of pressure for that defensive line for the Buffalo Bills. All right, so Ed Oliver, he's out. He's on IR. He tore his bicep. Deion Walker, he is the 4th round rookie out of Kentucky that the Buffalo Bills drafted this season. He's starting over the veteran Larry Ogunjobi. So there's not enough film to say whether, the jury's still out, whether he's going to be, a solid player for the Buffalo Bills. But his partner in crime in that interior defense line, Daquan Jones, he's playing pretty well for himself this season. PFF has given him a 73.7 overall PFF grade. He has 2 sacks, 2 tackle for losses, and 3 QB hits. He's ranked as the 15th best defensive lineman in the entire league. That is Daquan Jones. All right. Outside linebacker, Matt Milano, he's a good linebacker, but he's been suffering through injuries last year and this year as well. This year, he suffered an injury in week number 2. That was a pectoral injury against the New York Jets. He was able to come back, I believe, about 4 or 5 weeks later on against the Patriots, but then was back out with another injury there. It seems like he's healthy again. He's a good player when healthy. And then Bernard, their middle linebacker, this season he's really struggled. PFF has him ranked as the 74th best linebacker out of 82. So at that middle inside linebacker position, he's really, hasn't played so well. He has 9 missed tackles, 0 sacks. He has 31 solo tackles, and that ranks 55th overall for linebackers. He has allowed an 84.5 passer rating, which is, I would say that's decent. So the passer rating allowed is one of the only decent things that he's been able to produce on defense this year. All right, Dorian Williams, he's another one of the outside linebackers. He has allowed a passer rating of 121.5. That is insane. He's missed 5 tackles. He has a 46.1 PFF grade. PFF ranks him as the 71st best linebacker in the entire league, so very low. He's had 0 sacks this season and a total of only 6 pressures. So Matt Milano is good when he's healthy, but he's been dealing with some injuries this year. It seems like he's healthy now, but Bernard and Williams at those other linebacker positions, they haven't been doing so well for themselves this year. And also, their defensive backfield, outside of one of their safeties, Bishop, I don't like their backfield, their defense backfield. They're not playing so well as well. So Tre'Davious White, he's back with the Buffalo Bills. He spent some time with the LA Rams. He got released and went with the Rams. He got traded to the Baltimore Ravens. Now he's back this season with the Buffalo Bills. He's had 2 ACL tears throughout his career. He had 1 on Thanksgiving in 2021, 1 also in 2023. He has allowed a pass rating of a 102.5, a 56.4 overall PFF grade. He's ranked as the 77th best cornerback in the entire league, 77th out of 108 corners. He has 0 interceptions and only 2 pass breakups. So he's an aging, corner. He's in his 9th season. He doesn't look like the prime Tre'Davious White that even a guy like, Gronk, we know he got upset with him before too. He was one of the top corners, one of the better corners in the league. He's not that level of player anymore. Christian Benford, 6'1", 205. He's the other opposite outside corner. He has 0 interceptions this year, 0 PBUs. He's been targeted 40 times. He's allowed 24 receptions. So he's allowed a completion percentage to quarterbacks of 60%. And he has a 51.9 overall PFF grade. Jordan Poyer. So Taylor Rapp, he's injured. He was their starting safety. He's on IR. Poyer is one of those guys who's stepping up in his place. I mean, he has 97 total snaps so far this season. There's not enough film. They're putting some other guys in there as well, I believe. But they're a star in the defensive backfield. Their only star, I would say, is Cole Bishop, who is in his second season. This year, he has a 74.1 overall PFF grade. He is the 16th best. PFF ranks him as the 16th best safety. He was the second round selection last year out of Utah. He had 4 stars this year, but now he's been their starter the entire season. He has 2 interceptions. One of them came last week against Tua, the Miami Dolphins quarterback. He has 4 PBUs, and he has allowed a passer rating. This is really good. He has allowed a 29.6 passer rating. The perfect passer rating is 158.3. He has allowed a passer rating of 29.6. Very good. He's a so talent in that secondary for the Buffalo Bills. So the defensive line, for the most part, 3 out of those 4 players are good for the Buffalo Bills, I'd say. But their linebackers are suffering this year, and their defensive backfield outside of Cole Bishop are weaknesses. So Baker Mayfield, Josh Broussard, this presents a perfect opportunity, no matter who they have out there on offense, to turn things around, to get this offense back on track before you have an even tougher opponent against the LA Rams. Let's get now to the injuries for both these teams in week number 11. The Buccaneers got some good news this week that they were going to be able to get Chris Godwin Jr. and Bucky Irving back at practice. They both practice in a limited capacity. Bucky Irving, he's dealing with his shoulder and foot injury. We're told the shoulder is worse than the foot injury, and they're trying to see, can he take a hit with that shoulder and still be okay, not have a possible dislocation or anything again, not have any setbacks. And then Chris Godwin Jr., he's dealing with his fibula injury. Now, they came back in a limited capacity throughout the entire week, but they're both going to be out in week number 11 against the Buffalo Bills. But it's, again, a good sign. It's good to see some of your star players back. The arrow is pointing up for a possible return either at week 12 against the Rams for at least one of these 2 players, or against the Cardinals in week 13. But I would let them get healthy, keep them on the sideline, wait for them to be 100%, because you're going to need them more for the playoffs rather than a game against the Arizona Cardinals, for example, in week number 13. All right, Ben Bredeson, he suffered a hamstring injury last week against the Patriots. I believe the hamstring occurred on a special teams block assignment that he had. He did not practice the entire week. He is going to be out this week. That means that Michael Jordan, who started the first 2 games of the season this year, he also came in when Ben Bredeson went down. He will start most likely at left guard unless the Buccaneers do some, big shakeup. Hassan Reddick, he's dealing with his ankle and knee injury. He's been out even before the bye. He was out for the New Orleans Saints game as well. He did not practice the entire week. He is still out. But not on IR, so we'll see how close his return is. Marquise Watts, he's dealing with a hand injury. He was limited all week, but he's going to be out this week. Anthony Nelson, Vita Vea, Antoine Winfield Jr. are all on the injury report this week. Anthony Nelson showed up on Thursday with an illness. There's a flu going around, there's bronchitis, there's things going around, of course. But he is practiced in full on Friday. So did Vita Vea, so did Antoine Winfield Jr. And they're all 3 are gonna play in this upcoming game against the Buffalo Bills. For the Buffalo Bills, they have a few guys questionable, but again, the main star, the main player that they're going to be missing this week is Dalton Kincaid. He is their tight end 1. Again, he's dealing with a hamstring injury. He was out this entire week in practice. He's going to be out for week number 11. So again, the Buccaneers on offense, the main person you got to stop is the running back James Cook III. And if you can stop him, if you can make the Buffalo Bills one-dimensional and force Josh Allen to go pass heavy, I feel better about these Buccaneers, as defenders, whether it's Jamel Dean in the secondary or Antoine Winfield Jr. or Tyke Smith, who is playing phenomenally, Jacob Parrish, Zion McCollum. I feel better about those guys, of course, against a group of receivers that the Buffalo Bills front offense doesn't even have confidence in. Let's get now to the keys to the game for this upcoming matchup for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, keys to the game. If the Buccaneers do these 3 things, I think they come out of Buffalo with a win. Now, I didn't take them to win this game originally because I have to see the offense turn things around before I pick them to win this game or against the LA Rams. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to be able to win this game. Of course, I still have hope, especially with Dalton Kincaid, that they're going to be able to win this game. Now, overall, I had to make a choice. I picked the Buffalo Bills. I picked the Buccaneers to win last week, and they let me down in that aspect. But this week, I'm going with the Buffalo Bills. But I think out of the 3-game stretch here, I think the Buffalo Bills are the easiest out of the 3 games, out of the 3 teams to beat. But it's not going to be easy, of course. It's going to be very, very difficult. So my first key to the game is all about mental toughness. The Buccaneers are going to have to go into Buffalo. It's going to be a cold environment. I can't remember exactly the temperature, but it's going to be, I believe, high 30s, low 40s. It's going to be cloudy the last time I checked. It's going to be some rain possibly. It's going to be ugly football, like ugly, cold, gritty football. They're going to have to be mentally tough because they have to deal with the weather. Now, it got a little bit cold in Tampa this week. It was colder earlier in the week than it was later on. It wasn't enough, to train yourself for that temperature in Buffalo. But I don't believe it's going to be a snow game. So that's really good for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And when they went to the NFC Championship game against the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field, it was very cold in January, of course. And the Buccaneers were able to win. Now, they don't have the players that they had. That's a completely different team. But I don't think the cold is going to be too much of an issue in this game. But you still have to deal with it mentally and physically, of course. But also, Bills Mafia. Bills Mafia is extremely loud. They're jumping on tables, in their tailgates. They're extremely loud. They're extremely passionate fans. So the Buccaneers are going to have to be mentally tough, especially if things don't go well on offense at first. They're going to have to be mentally tough because of the weather, but also the crowd noise, and also just dealing with whatever issues come about. This is a team that is mentally tough, but they need to show that they're going to be mentally tough this week in a harsh, hostile environment. All right. Stop the run. Like I talked about, no Dalton Kincaid. All their wide receivers, I'm not a fan of at all. Dalton Kincaid, again, he's out. James Cook is the top weapon that the Buffalo Bills have on offense. If you can stop Cook, if you can stop him, he is hard to stop, of course. He has 6.9 yards per carry average. He has 920 yards, which is best, ground rushing yards, which is second best in the entire league, only behind the possible MVP in the league, Jonathan Taylor. He has 7 touchdowns. He's a hard person to stop. But this Buccaneers defense historically underneath Todd Bowles has been, since 2019, has been one of the better, if not the best, run-stopping teams. Of course, they had they allowed 2 horrible explosive runs last week with Travion Henderson. One was a gap issue. The other one, there was no containment to the outside. It was an issue there. They can't allow those explosive runs with a guy like James Cook, who's one of the better running backs in the entire league. I don't think he gets enough respect, but this year he's definitely putting up the stats to earn that respect, and he's put up stats before. So, James Cook, I would say he's, people know him, but I think he's still an underrated running back overall. Also, final key to the game. Effective play calling and execution on offense. Okay, the play calling has to be really good. There's going to be opportunities. The Buffalo Bills defense, like we talked about in the previous 2 segments ago, when we broke down the Buffalo Bills defense, their defensive line is good. Now they're missing Ed Oliver in one of those interior defensive line positions, but outside the defensive line, the linebackers have been a bit questionable, and outside of Cole Bishop at safety in the secondary, their secondary is a weakness on that defense as well. There's going to be opportunities to get the ball moving, but you got to be able to execute. You got to be able to call the correct plays when they come up. For example, I didn't like I like the going for on second on the 2-point conversion, trying to get the 2 points after the Buccaneers score the touchdown against the New England Patriots. I didn't like the play call though when you have Baker Mayfield run out as a wide receiver. I thought it was being a little bit too cute, a little bit too fancy there. I would have liked a better play call, but play calling, effective play calling, not just in the first drive of the game, not just in the last drive, but effective play calling throughout. I want to see Josh Grizzard step up this week. That Buffalo Bill defense, again, there's weaknesses there. There's spots you can exploit. And Baker Mayfield, he has to be able to execute. He has to be on tee. He can't be overthrowing wide receivers. He can't be off. He has to be on his game in week number 11, or the Buccaneers can suffer a second defeat in a row, potentially leading to a third defeat against the very tough opponent, the LA Rams, in week number 12. Let's get now to the the matchups, all the games across the NFL. I'm going to give you my picks. I'm going to give you Adam Slivon's picks. Let's go. Let's see which teams we picked in our head-to-head competition in week number 11. Let's get there now. All right, let's get down into these picks. My picks, Adam's picks for week number 11. We've been having a head-to-head competition all year long. It's been neck to neck. It's been a very tight competition. He has the lead right now. And shout out to Adam Slivon. You can follow Adam at Adam Lives On, Adam LIVSON on X and Instagram. He has bronchitis. I told him, hey, dude, don't worry about sending your picks over this week. You know, you're sick. Just heal up, get healthy. And he's like, no, the picks go on. The picks got to continue. And he sent over his picks. So shout out to Adam. He's the ultimate warrior. All right. So Adam leads the competition right now. His overall record is 98-50-1. My overall record is 97-51-1. So he has a 1-game lead. Let's see if it changes this week, however. All right, we both took the New England Patriots to win over the New York Jets on Thursday Night Football. So we were both correct there. Now, Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Buffalo Bills. Unfortunately for Bucs fans, we both have the Buffalo Bills winning, but I'm sure Adam thinks this way as well. It wouldn't be impossible. This is a very tough matchup, and for me, it's the offense. Can the offense turn things around? And if they can, then I have confidence that they can win this game. But if they can't turn things around, if they can't get into rhythm, if they can't get the keep drives alive, and when they get into the red zone, score points, and of course on third downs, convert those third downs, then I don't think there's going to be hope for them to win this game. So we both have the Buffalo Bills winning that matchup over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But again, anything can happen. All right, Washington Commanders versus the Miami Dolphins. Jalen Daniels is still out. I'm hearing it looks like a gruesome injury, and there's reports that he might, be back in a few weeks. So that's pretty insane. Shout out to another Ultimate Warrior there with Jalen Daniels. I have the Miami Dolphins winning, and Adam Slivon also has the Miami Dolphins beating the Commanders in that game. The Miami Dolphins, of course, coming off of that win over the Buffalo Bills last week. All right, the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're both taking the Steelers in that matchup. The LA Chargers versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're both taking the Chargers. The Chicago Bears versus the Minnesota Vikings and 9 and J.J. McCarthy, his alter ego. We're going with the Bears and Caleb Williams there. I'm not the biggest fan of Caleb Williams. I'm a big fan of J.J. McCarthy also. But the Chicago Bears have been the better of the two teams, I would say, and it seems like Adam agrees as well there. All right, the Houston Texans versus the Tennessee Titans. I believe C.J. Stroud is going to be out for this game as well. I don't think it really matters whether you have him or their backup quarterback in Mills. The Tennessee Titans, they're going to be in contention to get the first overall pick again this year. Them and I would say the New Orleans Saints possibly at the end of the year. All right, so the Green Bay Packers versus the New York Giants. And Jameis Winston is starting in this game. The former Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback. He is one of the most, I would say, exciting pregame and postgame speech quarterbacks in the entire league. His play is a roller coaster. We're going to get some very high highs and some very low lows, of course. But he's going to be starting that game. That's going to be cool to watch. I want to watch the highlights if I can of that game, or if I can catch that game. I guess see the timing of that one. But the Green Bay Packers, me and Adam both are taking the Packers over the Giants in that game. The Seattle Seahawks versus the LA Rams. I'm very high on the Seattle Seahawks. They're a great team. I have them with the Buccaneers. Well, I predicted a few weeks ago that the Buccaneers and the Seahawks would be in the NFC Championship game. Now, the Buccaneers offense needs to turn things around so that I can, that point can seem a bit more valid that the Buccaneers are going to be in the NFC Championship game and be a true contender. But the Rams and the Seahawks, that is a tremendous matchup. That is a game of the week, most likely there. We're both taking the Rams, however. I'm high on the Seahawks, but I think the Rams are the better of the two teams at this point right now. All right, the San Francisco 49ers versus the Arizona Cardinals. Jacoby Brissett is starting over Kyler Murray. We're both taking the 49ers there. The Ravens versus the Browns. No brainer. We're taking the the Ravens in that matchup. The Chiefs versus the Denver Broncos. That's another great game. We're both taking the Chiefs. The Dallas Cowboys versus the Las Vegas Raiders. We're both taking the Cowboys. So there's two games where we differ in terms of opinion, and these two games are going to be very important for our head-to-head competition or overall rankings. Again, he has a 1-point lead over me. That could change or that could increase. His lead can go up to 3 games if I didn't pick correctly here. All right, so the Carolina Panthers versus the Atlanta Falcons. I'm taking the Falcons in that game. I still believe in Michael Penix Jr. and Drake London and the guys they have there on offense that they can get a win over the Panthers and Dave Canales. But Adam is taking the Panthers and Dave Canales and Bryce Young to get the win over the Atlanta Falcons. And the other game is the Detroit Lions versus the Philadelphia Eagles. That is another great game. So I don't know which one's the game of the week. Is it the Seahawks versus the Rams, or is it the Denver Broncos versus the Chiefs, or is it the Detroit Lions versus the Philadelphia Eagles? We got some even the Buffalo Bills versus the Buccaneers. We got some very great games. Some epic clashes coming up real soon here. I'm taking the Lions to beat the Eagles. Adam is taking the Eagles to beat the Lions. So again, those two matchups, the Carolina Panthers versus the Atlanta Falcons, and the Detroit Lions versus the Philadelphia Eagles, those are going to determine who's number one and who's number two next week in our overall head-to-head competition. Let's get now to the closure. Bucs fans, my Fear the Bay Gunners, that's all I have for you guys here today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I truly appreciate all of you. If you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe. And also, if you know somebody who is a Bucs fan and they don't know about Fear the Bay yet, let them know that you can click the little share button on YouTube and you can send it to them via text message or Instagram or X. You can let them know about Fear the Bay and all the work that we're doing here. But again, thank you guys so much. It's going to be a very tough game for both the Buffalo Bills and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, I'm picking the Buffalo Bills to win. But again, I was on the fence there, and who knows what can happen. The Buccaneers, if they're able to exploit the weaknesses on defense of this Buffalo Bills team, and they're able to turn things around on offense, they could come out of this game 7-3. But anything can happen any given Sunday. That's why this sport is so awesome, so amazing, because you never know who can win these matchups. That's all I have for you guys here today. Again, I'm your host, Daniel Morales, signing out. Bye-bye.